Even with Connor McDavid returning ahead of schedule, the Edmonton Oilers are still finding ways to lose.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Thursday morning edition of Locked On Oilers. I am your host, Nick Zararis. I want to thank everyone who's making Locked On Oilers their first listen of the day. Locked On Oilers, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, where you can start the season with a big return. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So on today's show, we are going to unpack the Oilers' loss to the Golden Knights from a few different angles. We are going to talk in the first segment about what McDavid's return did for the lineup, the things that went reasonably well for them, that worked for them, why it was so nice just to have him back out there, even if he obviously not his whole self, but still looked reasonably good for somebody who's definitely not 100%. Our second segment, we're going to talk about the Ekholm Bouchard pair, which had a rough night tonight. And then final segment, we're going to touch on the undercurrent of the Oilers season so far. And as you know, if you're a regular listener, if you're not an everydayer, you've heard me a lot over the last few weeks expand on the idea of interconnectedness, that the Oilers' issues are multifaceted right now, that every component of the team isn't working the way it's supposed to. And because of that, it feels like you are constantly waiting for something to go wrong. When you are predicated on playing a certain way, on certain players delivering, and you can't manifest those outcomes, that's where you start to get into this sky is falling scenario where the Oilers played reasonably well tonight. They lost 4-2. They were in control of this game for good stretches. But for the Golden Knights to score 3 unanswered goals, to get 2 from a defenseman, and then the empty net or whatever, you cannot tell me there is not something lingeringly wrong with this team. You cannot tell me that the way they are playing, the mistakes they are making, the stylistic issues they are having. You know, it's fun. I was scrolling through along on Twitter. I checked in over on a few different conversations people were having about the game. And the recurring theme, at least through the first period of this game, was that the Oilers looked slow. And this is a team that had Connor McDavid return to the lineup tonight, the most dynamic hockey player on the entire planet. So starting there, with the return of McDavid, it lets the Oilers get closer to their ideal lineup. We've established that the main idea of this lineup, when it's at its best, is you separate McDavid and Draisaitl at 5-on-5, unless you're chasing a goal, then it's different. But your ideal lineup has them on 2 separate lines. They're both going to play something in the ballpark of 18 to 22 minutes, depending on the game, depending on special teams. And you are going to have control of the game for the 40 minutes those guys are out there. And the Oilers played reasonably well tonight. I'm not going to say they played great. I'm not going to tell you they deserve to win, because obviously when you lose a game the way they did, where you conceded 3 straight goals, you make the defensive mistakes you did, you have underlying issues. But from a process standpoint, they played reasonably well for a good chunk of this game. And for a team that is struggling to get out of the block in terms of building momentum towards their season, it is hard to unpack why everything is seemingly going wrong at once. And for you to be up 2-1 in a game, and look, Vegas is a good team. You're not going to get an argument from me that Vegas is a good team. But the counterpoint to that, and the reason you should start to maybe lean forward in your chair a little bit, the Oilers are having a hard time against bad teams. The Oilers are having a hard time against good teams. If you play good enough for 45 minutes, 50 minutes to have a 2-1 lead, you need to find a way to close out that game. The Oilers' inability to close out this game, they take a penalty. They know their penalty kill, which was 60% coming into tonight, which was dead last in the entire NHL. You know your defense is a massive liability. You know your goaltending is struggling right now. The Oilers' inability to find that third goal to put this game away, that's an indictment on the roster, the way it's built, and ultimately the outcome. And look, we can spend the entire regular season relitigating the offseason decisions, whether prioritizing Arvidsson and Skinner versus two defensemen, and so you weren't as reliant on not Travis Dermott. Dermott didn't play tonight. Stetcher and Emberson. When you have Stanley Cup aspirations and you have one pair that you don't want to break up, we can relitigate that for the end of time. I am sure that 3 or 4 years from now, someone writing about that Oilers team or doing a podcast about that Oilers team 3 or 4 years from now is going to be relitigating how the roster got to that point and the perceived defensive issues. They don't necessarily have a big prospect that's on the horizon that might be able to translate to a quality NHLer on the back end. You have that Nurse contract till 2030. Bouchard, you assume they're going to find a way to lock up long term, but Ekholm's on the older side, and the other three defensemen are all relatively unproven. But getting back to the main idea of the first segment, because we are going to talk about the defense quite a bit in the second and third segments, McDavid looked reasonably good tonight. The indicator for me when McDavid's right is when he is cutting on a dime, he's using his half stops, and he's whipping passes. And right now, and this is going to sound stupid, especially because I'm about to say what Connor McDavid, the best hockey player in the world, needs to do as somebody who hasn't played competitive hockey in like 10 years. The Oilers right now are not in a position where they can be doing the fancy stuff. And this is not an indictment of McDavid's game saying he's inefficient, he's making mistakes. The plays he's trying to make are extremely high level. He is cutting on a half wall. He is putting his back to the defender. He is using his lateral agility to get that defender to move. He's pulling people towards him to set up shots for his line mates, or in some cases defensemen. And because of that, there's a certain volume that's requisite to play that way. You know, if McDavid is constantly getting to the half wall, turning, feinting, putting his back to the defense and trying to manipulate the defense to create space, he's got to get the puck to the net. And the Oilers at large as a team, they get the puck to the net okay. The problem is there's no follow-up. They're getting the puck to the general area of the net. They don't have rebounders. They don't have deflectors. They don't have forecheckers to recover loose pucks. They are using McDavid is doing all of the hard work. He is skating the puck through the defensive zone, through the neutral zone, into the offensive zone with speed. He does the hard work. He draws defenders to himself. He eats a cross check or two. And for all of that work to result in a single scoring chance, that's frustrating. And the Oilers right now on a macro level are really, really struggling with the basics. And that's why they look so slow. That is why they look so clunky. Right now, they have two defensemen who are reasonably consistent at moving the puck regularly. Brett Kulak is not bad at moving the puck per se, but he does not have the puck skills of a Bouchard or an Ekholm. And that's why everything is off right now. And that would help the Oilers score more goals because they could go from defense to offense more quickly. But alas, we are sitting here on November 6th, soon to be November 7th, when this episode will be out and you'll listen to it. And they can't move the puck well. They are relying a lot on individuals making plays outside of structure, and it is a very inefficient way to live. We are going to take our first break of today's show. We come back, we are going to dive into the Ekholm-Bouchard pair's really rough game against the Golden Knights. If you guys know anything about me, you know I love getting to concerts, going to games. If you are in the market to try and get yourself to an Oilers game this season, the only place I buy tickets to get to games or to go to shows is via our friends over at Gametime. There is nothing like that feeling of walking into the rink, going up the tunnel, and getting hit with that house light. It is one of those magic feelings that no matter how many times you do it, it is special. If you are in the market, head on over to Gametime with some of the best features in the ticket buying experience. Things like the seat view, where you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. And Gametime ticket coverage, where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Right now, Gametime is having an exclusive deal for the NHL Winter Classic at Wrigley Field. Go to the Gametime app to purchase tickets and get 10% off bleacher seats and 20 to 25% off of home plate area seats. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel, where you can tackle NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets after betting $5 if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today, where you can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. If you were looking, tonight on Thursday Night Football, really good game. The Bengals heading to Baltimore to take on Lamar and the Ravens. The Ravens, 6.5-point home field favorites. Sunday morning, we have a game over in Europe. The New York Football Giants taking on the Carolina Panthers in Germany. The Giants, 6.5-point home favorites. And then my favorite game of the weekend, the Detroit Lions heading down to Houston to take on the struggling CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans, where the Texans are 3.5-point home field underdogs. Head on over to FanDuel, never waste a hunch, and make every moment more. Is FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on this Thursday edition of Locked On Oilers, where we are unpacking yet another Oilers loss. And I think for me, what's so frustrating is that all of the components of a successful hockey team, at least on paper, are here. The problem is, the roster isn't working the way it's supposed to. The Oilers are designed to dominate, and I mean dominate, the McDavid-Draisaitl minutes. They have enough depth where their third line should be able to contribute some offense. Now, I know Janmark left the game with an injury tonight. Connor Brown hasn't really had that spark he had in the playoffs, and Adam Henrique definitely is still in a weird place trying to find his game. The Oilers are at a point now where it feels like anything that can go wrong is going to go wrong for them. And I think the fact that Ekholm and Bouchard, which is undoubtedly one of the best defensive pairs in the entire NHL, they looked really rough tonight. I thought Evan Bouchard made really bad reads on 2 of the 3 Vegas goals that happened when the game still mattered. The Mark Stone goal, the empty netter, I'm not going to get on who's on the ice when in an empty net situation, because that's different. But the first goal, the Ekholm goal, the Oilers are trying to force the puck to the middle in the offensive zone. Nuge whips the puck to the middle, not really an intended target that's close enough where you should be trying to thread that pass. Vegas gets the puck in transition. Bouchard is slow in his turn to start back checking. He lets Ekholm get in between him and his partner so that neither of them can get a good angle on him. And he splits and he beats Skinner one-on-one. You know, I really hate doing the Bill Simmons body language doctor thing, but the simple fact is, every time the Oilers make a mistake, the guy who turns the puck over sags their shoulders and stops playing. You cannot be in the situation the Oilers are in with the glimmer of desperation you need to have, and immediately, if you make a mistake, start to sulk. It is one of my biggest pet peeves in sports, and it is something that genuinely drives me crazy. If you're 11 years old and you mess up, okay, you want to sulk. You are a professional hockey player. You turn the puck over, go get it. Don't sag your shoulders and lazily go for a change. Don't do what Bouchard did on the first one, where he was very clearly frustrated. Nuge went to the middle as opposed to him at the point. He turned slowly, and he allowed the other team to go down and score. It is not a healthy way to be. You go for the goals, and you can't tell me that this is a good sign that the Oilers are playing like this. The fact that that goal happens, Vegas gets a clean breakout. Bouchard just puts no effort into his back check. I'm running the highlight back right now as I am doing this narration. Bouchard is looking at the puck in the neutral zone. Barbashev passes the puck to the middle to Ekholm. Bouchard turns extremely slowly. He doesn't start skating hard, and he just lets Ekholm go. I'm not saying he gave up on the play because I'm not in his head. I can't make that determination. He didn't put in enough effort for me on that play. That is something that has stuck out with me so far this season, is that for as good as Bouchard is, he needs to be making more plays. As somebody who is built on his puck skills and his IQ, he makes really mind-bogglingly bad decisions when it comes to his positioning at times. Bouchard's a decent skater, but he's not Luke Hughes as far as back end. He's not Mo Seider. He's not an extremely gifted skater in that respect. He's not going to win a ton of races. He's going to outsmart you. He's going to get to the puck before you. But you can't be half in the way he was on that play and expect to just let that go. And then you go and look at the second Hanifin goal that wins Vegas the game. The Oilers have the puck deep in the offensive zone. They turn the puck over at the half wall and they break out. Draisaitl tries to get his stick in the way. It doesn't get there. Bouchard looks at the dump in. Ekholm goes to take Barbashev at the wall where the puck is. Bouchard is only looking at the puck. As Barbashev is about to win the puck, that's the first time Bouchard looks towards the middle and realizes, oh, Vegas has players crashing towards the zone. Noah Hanifin walks in. There is not an Oilers stick within, I would say, 4 to 5 feet of Hanifin when he releases that shot. That goal happens because, again, Bouchard is not on his mind. He is not as locked in as he needs to be. He gets caught puck watching. We talked a lot about puck watching on yesterday's show. Bouchard is only looking at the puck. When he sees Barbashev look up and intend to make a pass, that's the first time Bouchard gets any positional awareness on the sequence. He is entirely on edge. He is not in a position to make an athletic play. He is caught off balance, and he falls over trying to get his stick in the lane. That is 2 Vegas goals in this game that are entirely because Bouchard is not doing what he needs to be doing. And look, I am okay with high-end guys like him, like Draisaitl, trading defense for offense. If your game is predicated on outscoring the opposition and minimizing defensive risk, that is okay. But when the time comes and you do need to make a defensive play, it can't be what it was in this game. Bouchard is too good of a hockey player to be making these types of mistakes. And that's why I fundamentally believe the Oilers are in such a weird place right now, because their good players aren't playing like it. They are making a lot of individual plays outside of structure and making mistakes. We're going to finish that thought and tie a bow on this game in the final segment of today's show after this break. So be sure to stick around to this edition of Locked On Oilers. We are all driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. The thing I like about Indeed is that it is constantly learning from preferences from over 140 million different qualifications. So the more you use Indeed, the better its results get. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you to everyone who is hanging out on this Thursday edition of Locked On Oilers as we are slowly but surely making our way through the week, trying to get closer to the weekend. The Oilers' big hockey night in Canada showdown with the Canucks over in over in British Columbia in Vancouver. And look, I hate doing doomerous stuff about a hockey team in November, but at a certain point, if you become accepting of bad decisions, of bad habits, eventually that's what you are. And this is one of those things about life that can be difficult to grasp at times. No matter what you say about yourself, it is ultimately a matter of what you do. If you have low self-esteem and you say you're a bad person, but all you do is show up for your friends and take care of your business, you might not think you are a good person, but you are a good person. And then the inverse, if you think you're a good person, but you make decisions only based on you and not what you do for others, that is who you are. And that's kind of the issue the Oilers are facing right now, in the sense that they are a supremely talented hockey team. At a certain point, if the talent doesn't fit, if the skill sets don't match, if there's redundancy in skill sets, if there's a dearth of a specific type of skill set, you ultimately become what you are. Right now, the Oilers look slow, they look disjointed, and they look like they don't have the fundamentals of what they need to do down. And I understand that the Oilers' foundational principle is high skill and speed. So they are trying to make more difficult plays. There's a reason, and I want to make this point because I do think this is a good way of explaining it. The reason you see fourth liners dump the puck in and play cycle and play dump and chase is because they are not talented enough to carry the puck into the zone, to use speed, to create 3-on-2s, 2-on-1s, to get the goalie moving left to right. Fundamentally, the less talented a team is, the more they have to muck it up, the more they have to slow it down. They do that to mitigate their talent deficiencies. If you're playing the Oilers, you want to dump and chase, you want to force the Oilers to play defense, you want to slow the game down, force the Oilers to string together 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 passes to get to the offensive zone with possession and establish a forecheck. You force them more times than not to have to overpass, to work really hard to get to those high danger areas of the ice. You are going to have a good time. And look, Oilers had decent chances in this game tonight. Vegas made a couple nice saves. They blocked some shots. The Oilers, of course, missed the net a whole bunch. That's becoming a real signature, is missing wide open nets with goalies out of position. At a certain point, you are what you are. The Oilers are not dead. The Oilers are not dying. There is ample opportunity here for someone to put their foot down. I am not ready to panic yet. I think the Oilers have more than enough talent. I think their division is so poor that even a 40th percentile outcome for the Oilers this year probably gets them into the playoffs. And then all it takes is one McDavid supernova, and real quick, you can be in the conference finals, even if you haven't played particularly well. But when you are a team that has one path to victory most nights, and you can't do it consistently, we're more than a month into the season now, and the Oilers still cannot string together 2 consistent games in a row. They played a lot better tonight than they did against the Devils on Monday. I can absolutely concede that point. That said, if you continue to lose to good teams, to bad teams, at a certain point, you are one of those mediocre teams. And tomorrow on Friday's episode of Locked On Oilers, I'm going to do a deep dive. We're going to go through recent NHL history. We'll probably cut it off 2014, the first post-lockout year, to look at how teams come out of the gate after losing in the Stanley Cup final. Because I do think that matters. And I think the Oilers had that, and I did an entire episode on this the week before the regular season started, laying out the case, making the argument for as to why the Oilers were probably going to get off to a mediocre start. And it's everything. They have the emotional hangover of losing a Stanley Cup as close as you can lose it. You get to a game 7 after being down 3-0, and you are a goal away from becoming the most immortal team in hockey and one of the most immortal teams in the history of the sport. And you had the puck on the stick of the best hockey player in the world, and a defender for the Panthers got his stick on McDavid's stick. It stopped him from tying the game, and you lost game 7 of the Stanley Cup final after everything it took to get there. That weighs on you as a person, as a soul. That is something that those guys will never get over, even if they go on to win a Stanley Cup with other teams, maybe even this year. The lingering agony of that loss is not something you just get over when you are as competitive as a professional athlete. Then you add in the volatility that came from the offseason. You swapped out 3 forwards, you swapped out 3 defensemen. You are trying to successfully assimilate 3 defensemen in Emberson, Dermott, and Stetcher who have not been regular every game NHLers in years in the cases of Stetcher, and maybe ever in the case of Dermott and Emberson, and definitely in the case of Emberson. Dermott, for all of his injuries, has never really found more than a supporting cast role, and the Oilers are asking a lot of those guys, and it is not just on them for being, less talented players. It's on the Oilers for putting these guys in a position where they are so vital, and they just fundamentally are not capable of doing what the Oilers need them to do. Right now, the Oilers look like a team of talented players who cannot play together. I think the Oilers are going to get this going. I think ultimately, if they can get the penalty kill to be passable, where they are not guaranteed conceding a penalty kill a goal against every single game, that's going to go a long way. That'll take some heat off of the goalie. That'll take some heat off of the offense. But right now, with everything as volatile and uncertain as it is for this team on a night-to-night basis, they got to get back to the basics. They got to get pucks on net, they got to cycle, and they got to work for their offense. All the bells and whistles are great. The cross-seam passes, the dipsy-doodle dangles are great. When you're not scoring, you just look like you don't get it. And that's what the problem is right now. The Oilers look like they don't understand the issue because they continue to make the same mistakes over and over again. That'll do it for today's edition of Locked On Oilers. Before we get out of here, if you could be so kind, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave the show a 5-star review. If you're watching over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We're over 1,600 subscribers. We've doubled the follower count since I took over the show in April. We are making progress. I will talk to you guys tomorrow when we do our deep dive on Stanley Cup losers the season after. I'll talk to you guys then. Until then, let's go Oilers.